This is the Quartz Hill Mining District. You are standing on top of the Mother Lode. Okay, you're also standing on top of burials. This is the county senior center here. It was the county hospital for many years. There was also something called a pestilence house, which was an infectious disease place that was pretty much right over there. These were all prominent places. So we've got a hospital with its own history, long history in Placerville, and we've got a cemetery, and we've got a mining district, and we're behind schedule. So quickly, in the early days here, 48, 49, 1848, 49, there's no hospital. The nearest one's in San Francisco. To get there, you got to take a boat down the river. There's no viaduct or anything to get to, Vacaville. So you're either taking a wagon through Stockton or getting on a boat to take a sick person to a hospital. And of course, in 49, the population blows up. All these people arrive here, and there's 4 doctors here in 49. The care is really expensive, $16 a day. Board and lodging for a sick person is $20 to $30 a day, and the death rate was, quote, appallingly high. So 2 heroic doctors, Clark and Harvey, begin lobbying the county for a hospital in 1850. By 1855, the county funds the first hospital, which was right back where we came from in Uppertown, called the Broadway House. It quickly gains a reputation as one of the best hospitals in the state, but that's probably not saying that much. In an 1857 report to the Board of the Supervisors, Doctors Clark and Harvey report that, quote, the insane, the deaf, the dumb, blind, and the indigent become inmates of the county hospital. This class of cases have received at our hands that consideration due to their unfortunate condition, although the terms of our contract do not oblige us to take care and maintain them. So what we have here is early socialized medicine, ladies and gentlemen, and it gets worse. In 61, Dr. Titus takes over, and he's a former state senator, and he sponsored legislation to get state funding for counties to maintain a hospital, at least outpatient care at a minimum. In 62, the county dedicates 8 acres on Quartz Hill for a main hospital, an outpatient clinic, a pestilence house, which is an isolation ward, residences, orchard, and a garden. So I'm going to stop here. The pestilence house initially is for infectious disease, but these things come and go. In between time, you've got this class of largely male miners, single men, aging rapidly, that have been in very hazardous work, breathing dangerous stuff their whole life. They've got to be deaf and asthmatic and everything else. And they end up living here in this thing called the pest house. And most of them live out their lives here for many years peacefully. The place has a garden over there. They've got the cemetery behind me. They've got livestock. They are a relatively self-serving community here. And it's actually pretty cool. In 1898, a very charismatic guy, Dr. Noble Mountain, great name, huh? He takes over and reports, quote, in addition to a steadily increasing rate of patients injured in mining accidents due to the development of deep mining on this hill, the hospital handles the seemingly chronic problem of the treatment of teenage boys who wound themselves while practicing the quick draw. So, Dr. Mountain's got a sense of humor. In 1910, the Placerville Sanatorium opens on Coloma Road. Now, you guys know that the stretch of Coloma Road we're talking about here is when you're coming down 49 from Coloma and you get right close to Placerville and there's a stop sign and you turn right to stay on 49. If you go straight there, that's Coloma Road. The old hospital is on one side of the road, and the incredibly historic Church of Our Savior, built by C.C. Pierce, is right across the road. This thing is happening as a hospital, and the sanatorium opens as a public birthing and pediatric center. That's in the 1950s. That's what it becomes. there's still elderly folks around that were born at the sanatorium. In 1912, this hospital burns to the ground and is rebuilt for $13,000. They built a hospital in 1912 for $13,000. In 24, it burns again. They fix it. In 34, the pestilence house burns and is not rebuilt. So that party's over. But most of those old guys, by then, they came out here in their 20s, and by then they're gone. In 46, with the county, a new hospital is built here and equipped for $345,000. Little article on that included in your handout. And then there's a little summary here. From the 1880s to 1904, 152 out of 1,000 patients were indigent. After 1946, charity patients became the bulk of admissions. So the burden of the charity cases shifted from the pestilence house to the main hospital at this point. And shortly thereafter, Marshall Hospital opened in 59. This hospital gets another remodel for some reason. I do not understand that, but it gets another remodel in 65 for $500,000. Now it's 65 beds, a surgery suite, x-ray, $300,000 of equipment, and it needs more parking. So the area we're standing on now gets paved, and that's when they run into trouble with what we'll talk about next, which is the Pestilence House Cemetery, because guess what they find when they start digging the parking lot? Yeah. So let's just wrap up the hospital story, though. Like I said, Marshall opened in 59. This thing gets way too much money spent on it in 65. And then they lease it out to some outfit called Universal Medical Systems in 72. And UMS ensures that, quote, large sums will be spent on upkeep and equipment. 2 years later, they lose their license and the hospital closes. Now it's the county senior center and offices for health and human services. So in all this hospital history, there's little mention of the cemetery. However, researchers found hospital and archival records that indicate at least 430 burials on the grounds between 62 and 34. The number is likely higher. Like the guess is 500 to 700 burials here. These were all done with wooden markers. They were like pauper graves, and periodic fires came through and burned all those up. This all came to light initially when residential development was repeatedly proposed up behind me from the 1980s through the 2000s, and the subdivision streets are still carved out of the hill up there. The applicants all relied on a 1987 report by archaeologist Dana Supernowitz, which confirmed that there were hundreds of burials on the site, but identified just 11 potential burial sites, and therefore concluded that the cemetery had, quote, little or no architectural value. Boo. He recommended the expansion of Robin Court, that's that road right there, to access the proposed project. That report led the city to recommend the approval of the Quartz Mountain Estates project above the cemetery. But for reasons I do not know, the project never happened. It languished for the next 2 decades, during which time the county acquires the property and commissions a ground-penetrating radar study. Now, did we talk about what? GPR is where they drag this sled-like thing around, and it shoots radar in the ground and measures the density of the soil and tells you with some degree of confidence whether or not somebody's buried there. Soil density is what it measures. And as long as there hasn't been cattle run on soil, which tends to compact it a great deal, it's pretty reliable. It's accepted science, basically, by officials. And you can go watch the Discovery Channel. There's hacks going out renting these things. And, if it's an obvious one, you can tell. But if it's not obvious, you need to be a geophysicist to tell. We just did a bunch of this out in Greenwood. It was pretty cool watching them work, graduate students. Anyway, so guess what they found? What they found is on probably the 3rd or 4th, page 4 of your handout, is a map of all the burials up behind me. And they lead right up to where I'm standing, and it's pretty logical to assume that they continued under the asphalt, especially since when they were working on the road down there, years later, they found a grave. So it's likely that this entire area was full of graves. All right, so the Quartz Hill project does not die. It comes back, and it lands on County Director Tom Celio's desk in 2009. Now, Tom was a popular guy. Anybody here know Tom? Knew Tom? He came out to our first Save the Graves, and I fell in love immediately. Tom did not mince words. He declared the 1987 Supernowitz report to be flawed, referenced the subsequent research, which indicated far more burials, and argued that there were likely many more burials beneath the parking lot and even the structures. He strongly recommended that any future projects should spare no expense to protect, document, and mitigate any potential damage to the cemetery. Yay, Tom. The cemetery is about 3 acres. It's bounded by all the stuff you see there. Early burials would have been as far away from the orchard as possible. Recall I said the orchard was over there. So right up there, and the ridgeline you see is an EID canal. There's a sophisticated set of canals up there. It's really interesting. So anyway, various accounts of the hospital's expansion for its 110-year life include no mention of graves discovered during specific expansions. However, anecdotal reports from neighbors and workers, especially from when the parking lot was being expanded, repeatedly mentioned the discovery of caskets and remains. And we know for a fact that they freaked out when they were doing the parking lot and started finding stuff, because these burials go back to when they were still using arsenic. And arsenic is a forever thing. You don't want to get it at all. And so now we've got, trucks with showers and guys in white suits and burning of clothing going on, and everybody going hush, hush. So it was kept on the hush, hush, but it happened. And there were certainly a lot of victims of communicable diseases: smallpox, cholera, tuberculosis, diphtheria, but no mention that any portion of the cemetery is set aside for them. The graveyard's been the subject of multiple grand jury reports, all terrible. Some suggest that concern over exposure to the corpses, which might contain communicable diseases, has contributed to the lack of documentation, preservation, and care, or even acknowledgement of this historic pauper graveyard. Graves were originally wooden markers, I told you. The only substantive action to mark the graves happened in 1910. They took repurposed wagon tires. This is like thin bars of steel, and pounded them flat and stamped numbers on them and put them up here on all the known graves. There was hundreds of them up here. We know they're wagon tires because they're flat on one side, flat on the other side, but it's heavily tapered on the other side, which was the business end of the tire. In 2017, I made it my mission to find all the remaining of these, and spent way too many hours hiking around up there. But I found several, 4 actually, only in 2015. Last year, I could only find one, number 44, on the right side of the trail, 50 feet above the no trespassing sign on that tree right there, that white thing. And yesterday, I could not find it. So it looks like all evidence is gone, but not really, because we've got some at the museum. So we know what they look like, and I got lots of pictures here. Anyway, I think it's very important that we recognize this graveyard, and that's one of my the reasons I did a big sign project this year, was to get a sign in front of this. There's no time to go through all the geology history of this place, but if you hike up this trail here, the first thing you'll see probably is a massive homeless camp, and then the next thing you'll see on the left is a big hole in a quartz wall. And that hole goes Lord knows where all, because this was a major hard rock mining outfit here. We are on top of the Mother Lode, after all. And so there was a huge operation up there back in the day. But it played out, the stuff was too deep. I don't know what happened. But it all ended, and it's done. There's still evidence of that subdivision, but nothing's ever been built. So I got a couple of obits that I threw in here, but they're all just stories of guys that died of old age, and they had the problems that old miners have. Lung problems, heart problems, you know, just lifestyle things. And then the last one kind of concludes that, you know, they're dying right and left here because they're all just hitting that age. So that is the hospital cemetery. Thank you guys for not getting lost on the way here. And the next stop is St. Patrick's Church and Cemetery, and that one's going to be even briefer because we're going to try to catch up. And it's less dramatic because it's well maintained, but I want you to see what a well-maintained, active, historic cemetery looks like. It's basically, as the crow flies, right over there. So